Today we're diving deep into the combat system that might just redefine what we expect from martial arts games. Let's break it down. The Dance of Death. Fluid, fast, and absolutely fierce. That's where Win meets in 3 words. When I first heard about another Wuxia-based combat system, I'll admit I was a little curious but optimistic. We've seen games like Phantom Blade Zero Promise, and while that one impressed me with its potential, Win meets is here right now and it's already delivering. What immediately stands out is how natural the combat flows with the story you're experiencing. You're not just some overpowered warrior, you're learning, you're growing and adapting. The Wuxia elements aren't just window dressing, they're baked into every animation, every movement, and every clash of steel. Working with Stephen Tang really paid off here. The motion capture animation gives each strike weight and purpose. And then you add the mystic arts and weapon skill into the mix. You're certainly not just fighting, you're performing. Where meets transform the combat into this incredible power fantasy where you're gliding through enemies like water, but they hit back hard enough to remind you this isn't just a cakewalk. Playing on normal difficulty, I found myself constantly riding that edge between feeling unstoppable and knowing that one move could flip the entire fight. The easier modes are there if you want them, with dodge indicators for more forgiving time windows, but honestly the standard difficulty hits that sweet spot. Switching weapons mid-combo surprised me with how smooth it felt. One moment I'm pressuring with the dual blades, the next I'm creating distance with my rope dart, all in one flowing sequence. After about 10 hours, I started seeing combat less as an individual moves and more as a one continuous dance where I controlled the rhythm. 7 weapon types and endless possibilities. Now, I know what you're thinking, only 7 weapon types? That's it? I had the same reaction initially, but here's the thing. Everstone didn't just throw together some basic weapon archetypes and call it a day. Each weapon has its own identity, its own philosophy, and its own reason to exist in your arsenal. Take the sword, for example. It's your precision instrument. Shorter range means you need to initiate with your enemies, but those counterattacks, devastating. I spent a few hours mastering timing because once you nail those deflections, you're untouchable. The shadow step ability saved me more times than I can count when I bit off more than I can chew. The dual blades completely changed the tempo. Where the sword's about patience and timing, the dual blades are about pure aggression. You're weaving through defenses, applying elemental statuses, and chipping away with critical hits. The malevolent mark and bitter fate skills turn you into a whirlwind of constant pressure. I found myself switching to these whenever I face groups because the mobility is crucial. Now the spear. This became my go-to for crowd control. The reach from Vanish lets you control the space beautifully, and when you activate that twirling barrage skill, the screen becomes this mesmerizing display of destruction. I built around hit frequency with this weapon and the damage output goes generally silly. The glaive brings the heavy hits. Where the dances, the glaive demolishes. Wide sweeping arcs, massive damage potential, and surprisingly effective against armored enemy. There's something deeply satisfying about the weight behind each swing. You feel it, your enemies definitely feel it. But then we get to the weird ones, and this is where Winds meet really starts to show creativity. The rope dart isn't just a weapon, it's a combat philosophy. Pairing it with the dual blades created my favorite build. Consistent aggression regardless of the distance. That flowing transition between ranges made me feel like I was choreographing my action scenes. And yes, the fan and umbrella are real weapons here. The umbrella specifically blew my mind. What should be a joke weapon becomes this defensive masterpiece that can shut down enemy attack patterns while setting up brutal counters. The fan brings its own utility with support capability change how you approach content. Martial arts mastery. The beauty of Win's meat combat goes beyond just weapons. The martial arts system layers on top perfectly, giving you access to 12 different fighting styles, 23 different mystic techniques, from the redirect philosophy of Tai Chi that can turn enemy force against them to elemental attacks that literally you command nature. The variety is staggering. What I love is that you can discover these organically. You're not just buying skills from a menu, you're infiltrating strongholds, learning from masters, and observing the world around you. I found one technique by watching certain enemies move, another one by exploring a hidden cave system. Each discovery felt earned, and more importantly, each one opened up new combat possibilities. Managing your spirit resources for these arts becomes a strategic layer during combat. Do you blow it early for a quick damage, save it for emergency escapes, use it to turn the tide when a boss enters the second phase? These decisions matter, especially on higher difficulty where the resource management means the difference between victory and watching that screen again. The internal art system deserves a mention. It's not just about flashy moves, it's about fundamentally changing how your character fights. Some arts focus on defense, others on mobility, some you hit really hard. Combining these with your weapon choices and your mystic arts creates build diversity that'll keep the theory crafters busy for months. The stealth element surprised me too. Several mystic arts you embrace your inner ninja, turning invisible, striking from the shadows, creating opportunity for assassination. I wasn't expecting this layer, but it works beautifully here. Sometimes the best fight is the one you don't have, unless you're like me and stealth is just set up to the perfect ambush because it looks cool. The Qigong movement ties everything together. You're not just locked into the ground. Combat goes vertical, wall running in mid-fight to dodge, launching aerial attacks, using the environment as another weapon. Once I understood that it wasn't just for but a part of combat, fights became these three-dimensional chess matches, enemies that push back. Here's where Win's Meat really proves itself. The enemy design is fantastic. These aren't just about throwing different bars at you. Every enemy teaches you something, challenges different aspects of your combat knowledge. Human enemies mirror your own capabilities. They dodge, they use martial arts against you. Fighting bandits feel like actual reading your opponent matters. Elite martial artists takes this further. They'll punish button mashers ruthlessly. I learned quick that these fights demand respect and patience. Then you have these beasts and mystical creatures that completely change the rules. Their attack pattern are alien, their movements are unpredictable. That combat system that you just spent hours mastering, now you need to adapt on the fly. Some enemies can only be damaged after perfect deflections. Others require elemental attacks to defeat, others to defeat. Boss fights are events. The Shadow Puppeteer fight I mentioned earlier, just one example of how these encounters test everything you've learned. Multiple phases, evolving attack patterns, new mechanics introduced mid-fight. These aren't just skill checks, they're examinations of your understanding of the entire combat system. What I really appreciate is how the difficulty never feels unfair. When I died, and I did die plenty, I always understood why. Maybe I got greedy with the attacks, maybe I forgot about that one move in the second phase. The game gives you all the tools to succeed, it's on your own to use them properly. Now for the rough edges. Let me be real with you. It's not all perfect. The camera system, when you lock on, it pulls up this elevated view that makes the spectacle awareness harder than it needs to be. In one-on-one fights, it's manageable, and in group battles, it becomes actively frustrating. I find myself constantly fighting the camera as much as I did the enemies. Performance on PS5 has been mostly solid, but I've hit some frame drops during particularly chaotic battles with a lot of particle effects. Nothing game breaking, but noticeable enough to mention. The PC version apparently runs better, but I can't personally confirm that just yet. The tutorial pacing is also off. You get bombarded with system after system in the first few hours, then barely seeing some of those mechanics again for ages. It feels like they were so excited to show you everything that they forgot to pace it out naturally. It's clear that this game was built for original Chinese audio. The lip sync is a little off. Some lines delivery feels a little awkward, and honestly, I switched to Chinese subtitles after a few hours and I never looked back. The complete package. Despite those issues, Where Wind Meets combat system absolutely delivers. After my time with it, I'm convinced that this is going to be one of those game developers that develops a dedicated community of players, discovering new combos. The way the combat integrates with is seamless. You're not just entering a separate combat mode. Fighting is a part of how you just exist in this world. The freedom to approach an encounter your way, whether that's stealth, aerial attacks, or just walking up and challenging everyone, keeps things fresh. Variety will keep me coming back. My current setup focuses on spear control with umbrella defense, but I'm already planning my next character, maybe aggression with dual blades and fans, or maybe a mystical arts focus with minimal weapon uses. The possibilities are genuinely endless. The multiplayer integration works better than expected. Solo play feels complete and balanced, but jumping to co-op adds a new dynamic without breaking the flow. Require actual coordinations and not just a higher number, which keep them interesting, and all of this is free to play. I keep waiting to catch that moment where monetization ruins everything, and so far nothing has happened. The devs insist that this is going to be cosmetic only for purchase, and my experience backs that up, but I'll be watching closely post-launch to see if that changes. As far as my final thoughts, When Meets combat system takes the best part of the games we love and combine them into something that feels both similar and fresh. It's not revolutionizing the genre, but it's refining it in the ways that matter. The moment-to-moment feel of combat is sublime. The weapon variety keeps things interesting, and the skill ceiling is high enough that I'm still discovering new techniques after a full week of play. Is it worth your time? Absolutely. The learning curve is fair and the payoff for mastery is huge. In those moments where everything clicks and where you're deflecting attacks, whipping weapons mid-combo, and launching into the aerial mystic arts, those moments are magic. Where Winds Meets launches November 14th as a free-to-play title on PS5 and PC. Even if you're skeptical about the monetization model, there's no barrier to entry. Just be prepared to lose lots of hours perfecting your combat style. And hey, if you want to see me continuing my journey through this world when it launches, come hang out with me on Twitch at Andre the Alpha. Link is in the description. We'll be diving into deep builds, tackling hard content, and probably dying a lot in the process. But until next time, remember, stay safe, stay smart, and stay alpha. Peace out, everybody.